And for more of this, we're now joined by activist and advocate to end GBVF, Candice Ludick, and she joins us via our video link. Candice, thank you so much for your time this evening. But of course, one would say that as a country, we really do have a problem when it comes to violence against children. And this also just draws me back to what happened last week in Pretoria and Soshanguve when a little boy was gunned down during a hijacking. And when you look at these latest scenarios, one would say, how concerning is violence against children in this country?
Thank you very much. Well, obviously, violence against children in this country is a huge concern. I don't think it really serves us to exceptionalize cases of violence, though, because every day children throughout our country are suffering due to the violence that is endemic. Obviously, as a gender-based violence and femicide activist, that is what I've predominantly focused on, but there are intersections between gender-based violence, domestic violence, and violence against children. I think what we need to accept is that we're in a situation where violence is running rampant, and obviously the people most affected are the people least able to defend themselves. So children don't really stand a chance unless communities stand together to raise the children as our own and protect them from this type of violence.
And I like the fact that you're saying that communities should raise children as their own. I mean, growing up in a community myself, one would say that, even your neighbor was like a parent to you. And if they saw you in the street, they would immediately, take care of you as their own child. And now looking at these crime statistics, I mean, just from October to December 2023, 280 children murdered. How is this even possible?
Well, exactly. We're in a situation where we have people celebrating when there are 250 kids killed instead of 280 kids. That is completely absurd. We need to look at our measurement of success, first of all, and what that looks like. And then we need to look at why we are not effectively able to hold perpetrators of violence accountable for their actions. We need to look at what accountability looks like and what systemic changes need to be made to ensure that there is indeed justice for the victims of violence and their families.
And looking at what needs to be done in our society, I mean, to ensure that children are protected, what is your clarion call to various communities and society as a whole in terms of playing their part when it comes to the protection of children?
Sure. No, there's no simple answer to that one. Obviously, we are complex beings, and there are intersecting factors which heighten our susceptibility to violence. However, I think if we look at our value systems, that would definitely be a good place to start. We seem to have been lulled into a type of consumerist, materialist culture where we value things and money over people and planet, and we keep creating environments in which violence is able to thrive. Our social, economic, political systems are based on notions of power and domination and control, whereas where is the humanity? Where is the love? What's happened to our hearts? I believe we need to organize ourselves differently, and that would be a step towards seeing the sort of changes that we need to see to start eliminating this type of extreme violence that we've all kind of become desensitized to.
And as we, of
I
course,
don't know if I answered your question, though.
Well, you tried, but it's okay. And as we observe, Child Protection Month, how should this month actually be observed, especially in prioritizing children?
So for me, I agree with the sentiment of many other activists that Child Protection Month is simply not enough, right? By highlighting the issues of children this month, the issues of women next month, the issues of the environment the next month, we're not actually moving towards any type of cohesive strategy. What we also find is that we have so-called marginalized groups competing for resources. Meanwhile, we're all suffering as a consequence of the same systemic failings. So I think it would be far better for us to come together and really start looking at how we can reorganize ourselves so that we are able to address the multitude of intersecting factors that are leaving us all vulnerable to violence in our daily lives.
And what would be your advice to South Africans who have lost that sense of community, who have lost that sense of my child is your child, especially now as we put a spotlight on Child Protection Month?
Wow, you're certainly not asking easy questions, particularly if we look at the rates of child abuse. We can't just simply say my child is your child indiscriminately, because there are people who believe that children are somehow less human than they themselves. So we can't just say, oh, but everybody is going to take care of the children, because some people are not really there for that. Some people are actually there to look for a gap, to abuse a vulnerable child. So we need to be quite conscious of that. But I think my advice would be to believe children. When they tell you that they are not comfortable with somebody, when they tell you that somebody has hurt them, believe them. Don't blame them when they find themselves being victims of violence.
All right, Candice, thank you so much for your time here on SABC News. That is Candice Ludick. She is an activist and advocate to end GBVF.